All right, we are back. So finally here, finally get a reaction, finally get a recap show. Enough of all the talking, predicting, and previewing. Now we get to actually recap what actually happened in the game. So we're going to talk about every SEC quarterback on this show, kind of recap their performance. Some quarterbacks we'll talk more about than others, of course, but we're going to talk about every quarterback. This is your first time tuning in. We talk all things quarterback, specifically SEC quarterbacks. We have 2 live shows a week, these reaction shows. We talk about each quarterback's performance. And the preview show, we talk about who these quarterbacks are playing in the upcoming weeks. We had several quarterbacks in the SEC make their first regular season start, right? And some were good, some were bad, some were in between. We saw several quarterbacks play against really good defenses. We saw some quarterbacks figure it out. We saw some quarterbacks not be able to figure it out. So we're going to go ahead and dive into it. Let's go ahead and talk about these quarterbacks. So we got 4 big games we're going to talk about, but also some surprise games. Right? Like I want to talk about Lenore Sellers for South Carolina. I want to talk about Beck Vandergriff. I want to talk about Quinn Ewers and what we saw. Right. So the games that maybe didn't get as much attention, I still want to dive into that detail. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into it, right? And if you haven't followed us along, we put out film breakdowns. We'll have a few more film breakdowns coming out this week. We had some come out this weekend. So if you like more like the nitty gritty stuff, we get into that a little bit. But this is this reaction show. This is this kind of the theme of these quarterbacks. Number 1, Garrett Nussmeier. Let's go ahead and dive into Nussmeier. Let's go ahead and talk about the game that happened last night against USC, where I don't want to say blew it, but I think being out coached at the end definitely led to LSU not winning that game, right? So, but Nussmeier himself going into the game, my biggest question was, does he live up to the hype, at least in week 1, right? Is the hype going to be real? And it was right off the bat, like no questions asked. They did not lose that game because of Garrett Nussmeier. In fact, they were in that game. They should have won that game because of Garrett Nussmeier, the throws he was making, and this probably will get talked about a lot, but the throws he wasn't making, he wasn't forcing anything. He had that one pick at the very end of the game, but that was a different situation. I pretty much count the game that he played, no turnovers, right? Besides that last play at the game. So it was the throws that he wasn't forcing. Like going into the game, one of our key factors for Nussmeier was take the boring throws, take the boring plays, right? Go through your progressions. That was number 1. Number 2, our third key was like sling the ball deep once they give it to you. It's pretty much exactly what he did. Like they didn't lose because of him. Maybe he got outdueled at the end, but I think more so they got out coached, right? So coming off week 1, the hype was definitely real. He was 29-38, 308 yards passing, a completion percentage of 76, 2 touchdowns, and that one pick we talked about at the very end. And the main thing that stood out to me watching Nussmeier was one, he was so comfortable in the offense, knew exactly where to go to the ball, was able to go through his reads. I think that was pretty evident. Number 2, it was his accuracy. Like if you look back at the previous few years, again, it's not like he had a ton of experience, but he had a good amount of experience for being a backup. His completion percentage was in the 50s every year, right? And so again, it wasn't like he had only 5 or 6 throws. Like he had a good amount of volume kind of packed up. So to see him go 29-38, to see a completion percentage of 76, and there was at least 1 drop, maybe 2 that come to my mind, so it could have been even higher. But to see him do that and take care of the football, because he had a few picks in his limited time playing the past few years, that was really, really encouraging, right? So he did everything you want him to do, especially early on. And then once the game got in a little rhythm, if you will, he took some deep shots. We had 3 completions with the ball was throwing 20 yards or more downfield. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want. So I think everything was pretty even. I thought it was a really well-called game until the very end. Maybe you have some disagreements. I don't make that type of money to people don't think I'm that smart to make that type of money to call football games, right? Chances are you probably aren't either. So they probably have a lot more football knowledge when it comes to that. But still, I think you can question, hey, what was the play call like? Did we take the foot off the pedal? What happened at the very end, right? But overall, I thought he did everything you wanted to see him, right? Now, there's one thing I would like to see from Nuss in the games moving forward, something that I think he has that wasn't showcased, is his legs. Now, he's not Jaden Daniels, but I think there's part of his game you can utilize. And some of those 3rd and shorts, some of those 4th and shorts that they weren't able to convert, especially early on, I think you can use the threat of Garrett Nussmeier and his legs, at least get him outside the pocket, give him the option to potentially run, right? But overall, did he live up to the hype in week 1? I say absolutely he did. Can't wait to see him moving forward, right? If they would have won that game, everyone's talking about Garrett Nussmeier. But now you're talking about Miller Moss, and rightfully so. He won the game. Let's go Carson Beck. against Clemson, right? I was really excited for this one. This started off the college football season, essentially, at least the weekend. My biggest question going into the game was, how is he going to do versus an elite defense? We saw him play really good last year against good defenses, but when they played Bama, the elite defense, last year, the most elite defense they played last year, it wasn't his best game. So my biggest question was, how will he do versus an elite defense? Well, he turned out to do pretty well, right? 23 of 33, 278, 2 tutties, and no interceptions. But starting off in the game, I thought Clemson, and pretty much through the whole game, Clemson's defense played pretty salty. They didn't give a big play. Even the entire game, Clemson's defense didn't give up a big play. But kudos to Beck for just keep chipping away. He kept chipping away, right? Like the first half, he would have a big play. Like that second 16 had a great throw. The first drive, he was able to scramble and use his legs a little bit to get a first down, right? There's some nice plays in the first half that Beck did, but they weren't able to continue that. You saw him miss a few throws. Like he was still 15 of 18, 15 of 19, whatever it was in the first half, still extremely accurate. There were a few throws he missed that he usually makes, and you heard the broadcast talk about that. And I think that's hats off to Clemson's defense. But Carson Beck, he just kept chipping away. And eventually, if you keep chipping, eventually rocks start to fall and good things happens. That's exactly what happened with Carson Beck. I thought he did good against this elite defense. There weren't any big plays. He had 0 completions. The ball was thrown 20 yards or more downfield. But he was able to get the ball to his playmakers who eventually made big plays, right? So, like we said, first half would have nice plays, but not finish. Second half is when they started being able to finish, and they were able to pound Clemson, right? They eventually found a way to get the ball to his playmakers. They took advantage of it. Beck was patient. It took him time to figure it out. It was almost like a chess match, essentially. Like Clemson would show something, and Clemson would take away the big plays. Clemson was taking away what Beck was comfortable with. Then Beck figured it out, right? There's a reason why he's probably the best quarterback in college football. And there are a few things I like from Beck. Like we saw him spread the ball out a bit more than last year. Like last year, he lived in between the numbers, and that's great. That's fine. But we saw him throw the ball on the run a bit more. We saw him throw the ball outside the numbers because Clemson was taking away some throws. So really good job by Beck, just figuring it out, staying patient, trusting his play calling, trusting the team around him, and they were able to have a good game, right? I know we have a few people in chat, not much, but if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, please post a comment in the chat, and we'll get to it. We're just going through every quarterback here. And if you're re-watching this, give us a comment in the regular comments, right? And like, share, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It helps. All right, let's keep going on. Let's talk about Graham Mertz. Right, Florida. Not a good situation right now, especially talking to people who are in the program, who are contributing to the program, who not the football program per se, but maybe the higher ups. It's really dysfunctional. I forgot who tweeted it this weekend. But there's some interesting things going on behind the scenes as far as the interim president and what could or couldn't potentially happen. But that's over my head. We just talked quarterbacks. Let's talk Graham Mertz. So going to the game, I was really excited. I was excited to see Cam Ward, but I was also excited to see Graham Mertz. I thought he was going to take the next step, and obviously that was not the case. Now it's not all on him. I thought the team was pretty atrocious to begin with, but I thought Mertz would be better. I was looking forward to Mertz and how he would play. So when Cam Ward took the lead, my biggest thought was, okay, how is he going to respond? What's going to happen here, right? There's only one really good throw I can think of. It was that back shoulder play in the first or second quarter that got them almost to midfield. But besides that, there's just nothing going on. Like really nothing going on. They were 0-5 on third downs in the first half. There's no real rhythm. He was 11 of 20 for 91 yards and a pick before he got hurt. Really just no takeaways, just nothing going on. Not a good situation for Florida right now. Hopefully he's healthy. Hopefully he gets back. But if not, DJ Lagway did have that one really nice drive. Those 2 good completions on those like little skinny post routes that the receiver was able to catch in stride and take forward for some good yak. And then he had the nice run. Was it a touchdown? No, he didn't have the touchdown run, but he had a good 10, 15-yard run that got them inside the 5-yard line. So I think DJ Lagway, if you're trying to look for some positives, besides that one long run touchdown and that one nice block on that touchdown run, if you're trying to find some positives besides that, DJ Lagway is that positive. Again, I don't think it was Graham Mertz's fault per se. Like, obviously he didn't play great, but that whole situation, the whole team, the coaching, just wasn't – this isn't a great situation. All right, so let's move on to the last kind of big game, big breakdown game. And that was something quarterback play similar to Graham Mertz, where I didn't think it was going to be this bad. Connor Wigman from Texas A&M quarterback. I've been high on a quarterback that people who are a lot smarter than me when it comes to football are high on, and still a guy who could be a first-round pick. It's one game. If you're watching this kind of quarterback SEC niche content, then it's safe to assume you're football junkie, and so you know exactly how Wigman played against Notre Dame, which is not great, right? But going to the game, biggest thoughts, and they said it some of the broadcasts, was to reestablish himself. And I totally agree. That's what I was looking for, like reestablish yourself, pick back up where you left off in 2023. Understand you have a new offense, understand it's a new coaching staff, understand you're playing this really good defense, but still, can you pick back up where you left off, right? Can you prove all these people right? Can you take all this offseason hype and turn it into a reality? And so far in week one, the answer was no. But before we dive into this play, let's give the Notre Dame defense some credit. Like, I probably didn't give them enough credit going into this game. That defense is legit. Like, that defense didn't let Wigman do anything. Besides that first drive, the first drive Wigman had, I thought, okay, he's looking sharp, made a few good throws. There was a drop pass, either the first or second drive. They got a field goal. Like, I thought he looked sharp. I was like, okay, this is good. We're getting settled in. But that's pretty much the only positive takeaway we had, right? Wigman was 12 of 30 for 100 yards and 2 interceptions. They only had one completion where the ball was thrown 10 yards or more. So 0 past 20. So all of his 11 of his 12 completions, the ball was thrown 9 yards or less. Like, Notre Dame's defense just wasn't giving you anything downfield, and you felt it watching the game. Notre Dame's defense was suffocating Texas A&M, specifically Connor Wigman, right? So besides that first drive, I really didn't see anything, right? There's no rhythm. You can't do anything downfield. So the takeaway here is, I don't know how much is on Wigman, how much is on Klein, how much is on trying to work out this offense against one of the best defenses in the nation, right? Yeah, you got a easier game coming up where hopefully you can work these kinks out. You got to go to Florida, and that game's looking more and more in your favor, like especially after week one, but still it should be a tough environment. But you want to get these kinks figured out. Let me grab a quick swig of water. We'll keep talking about Connor Wigman. All right, so it's just week one. I think it's way too early to overreact and be like, okay, he's not going to be the guy, right? It's way too early to react, too early to give on him, like to give up on him. Like we said, this Notre Dame defense is going to be one of the best defenses in the nation, but I definitely think it's fair to question, like, man, was I wrong? Is he going to be the guy? Is he going to be this potential first-round pick? The talent is there, like the arm strength, the legs, the athleticism, everything is there. So I think it's way too early to give up. I think it is fair to kind of reevaluate where you stand on Wigman in the offense, at least when you're playing elite defenses. Again, it's week one. Let's not overreact. I'm still high on Connor Wigman. Again, people way smarter than me are still high on Connor Wigman, so it's way too early to overreact. But I think it's fair to kind of question. So what do you want to see from Wigman moving forward before we wrap Connor Wigman section up? You just want to see him bounce back, man. You just want to see him bounce back. Maybe he put too much pressure on himself. Maybe he thought he had to do too much to beat this defense. Maybe they just didn't know what was going to happen. They're still, trying to get the offensive system in play. So I think it's fair to question, but I also think let's not overreact. Okay, let's move on. Let's get to Diego Pavia. Let's get to the upset against Vodtech. And this is a game I wish I talked more about, admittedly. Now, I did talk about Pavia. I did say that they would need a big game from him to upset, and that's exactly what happened. So going in, my biggest question was, let's see, I apologize. I totally am not good with this computer. Okay, here we go. My biggest question was, can the New Mexico State University Diego Pavia, can that style of play transfer over? Can he bring that over to Vanderbilt? And after week one, the answer was absolutely. He was 12 of 16, $190, 2 tutties, 0 picks, 104 yards on the ground, and he let his nuts hang, right? Like, he let his nuts absolutely hang. If you're a Vandy, you need that type of quarterback. You need that type of play from your leader. That's exactly what he gave to Vanderbilt. And yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it was exciting. Yeah, you jumped out to a big lead. But then Vodtech came back. Now I was thinking, okay, this was a great story. Diego Pavia, great game. Vanderbilt, great start to the season. Vodtech sailed down and escaped with the win. But they were able to respond and hold on, get the lead back, and get the victory. Was it a game-winning field goal? I can't even remember at the very end. But regardless, they won the game, right? So it was nice to see them not only start hot, but find a way to finish. Diego Pavia can play. He's just a football player. If you go back and watch his New Mexico State highlights, like he's just a football player. We covered a lot of Group of 5 football, so we watched him a lot last year. So it was pretty cool seeing that transfer over and seeing Vandy beat Vodtech, right? So Pavia is definitely going to be a fun quarterback to watch this year. I feel like quarterbacks. No, let's go ahead and talk about South Carolina quarterback Lenore Sellers, a quarterback that had a lot of hype, a quarterback that is extremely talented, and we saw why there's a lot of hype about him because his big arm, he's athletic. He can score from anywhere in the field with his legs or his arms, and he did show that against Old Dominion. But let's talk about it a little bit more. Let's talk about the overall performance from Sellers against ODU, because of all these games where it should have been a blowout, this is the most concerning one, or at least the one that has the most info to talk about. So overall, I don't think the play was very good from Sellers. Now, is that offensive play calling? Is that first-time jitters? Is it Sellers? Probably a combination, right? I think Sellers can be really good. I just don't think the play overall was great starting off. Going into the game, I was thinking, okay, this is the first full extension of play that we're going to be able to see from Sellers. So I was looking forward to it. I was looking forward to seeing what all the Gamecock fans were excited about. He finished 10 of 23, 86 yards, 2 tutties, 0 interceptions, which is good, 68 yards on the ground, and 1 touchdown on the ground. They did have a weather delay, which is kind of funky, but overall, I think the biggest takeaway was he just didn't look comfortable in the offense. And it wasn't just him. I'm not talking about him, but he just didn't look comfortable in the offense. The receivers, he wasn't on the same page as his receivers. They had 24 yards passing in the first half, and then after the second half was, 62, if my math's correct, 64, something like that. So they were never able to get anything going. I just don't think they were on the same page. And ODU, man, they probably should have won that game, if I'm being completely honest. They got the ball back inside the 10 early in the game, then threw an interception, and they should have got points off that. ODU fumbled it inside their own 5-yard line. The quarterback did. South Carolina was able to get the ball back and score a touchdown. So if you take those 2 plays away, ODU probably should have won that game. So they weren't on the same page. There was nothing downfield. 7 of his 10 completions, the ball was thrown 9 yards or less. Of those completions, 3 of those completions were thrown behind the line of scrimmage. So no rhythm, no downfield threat. There's just nothing really going on in the passing game. Now, he did show his athletic ability, right? He did show his ability to use his legs and run, which was great. And he did show his arm strength. In the first half, he threw a beautiful deep ball. It was dropped by the receiver, but even if it wasn't dropped, there's a flag that would have called it back. But the potential was there. So while I didn't think the performance was good by any means, I don't think you should be discouraged per se, because the talent is still there. He just still showcased the talent. It's his first start. Let's give him some leeway. They're able to find a way to win, but you got Kentucky coming up, and Kentucky looked better than you did. So you got to figure out some stuff and get some stuff fixed. That's for sure. Again, if you're watching this video and you're not in the chat, again, we only have a few. If you're not in the chat and you're watching this after it's been recorded, please give us your thoughts in the comments below, what you thought of any of these quarterbacks. A few more quarterbacks I want to get to before we wrap this up. Let's talk Quinn Ewers going in. Again, they blew the doors off the Rams, 50-something to nothing. But I do want to touch on it because I thought he showed what we wanted to see, right? My thought going in was, what are they going to show? Are they going to, are they going to pull Texas and get in a close game and play down in the competition? Well, the answer was no. Right from the get-go, there was no chance Colorado State could stay in this game. The ball was out quickly. He did exactly what he had to do against lower-level competition. Get the ball to your playmakers. Don't show anything. No need to push the ball downfield. Just get the ball out quickly, and that's exactly what happened. He had that one pick, not, I guess, kind of his fault. The ball is either hit from his hands or floated out of his hands, whatever it was. But besides that, he did exactly what you were supposed to do against a Colorado State team. 7 of his 20 completions were behind the line of scrimmage, so just get the ball out quick. My players are way better than you. The athletes Texas had compared to Colorado State is just different. It's a different level of athlete. God made those guys a little bit different, and so that's exactly what you saw on the field. And that was a perfect game to get ready for Michigan next week, right? So my thought was, what were they going to show? Not too much. He did exactly what they're supposed to do. Jalen Milroe, very similar to the Quinn Ewers, right? And how, not player-wise, but as far as like what you wanted to see. And they blew the hinges off, the doors off of Western Kentucky. I mean, Western Kentucky never had a chance. That game was over. In the first quarter, it was like 28-0 or something, and just never had a chance. But you saw what you wanted to see. You saw some big plays, the ball come out quickly. You saw him use luck. You saw everything you wanted to see from Jalen Milroe without the offense having to show too much. I don't have anything really to add here, except it was a great first game for Kalen DeBoer. Great to get your feet wet against a team like Western Kentucky. Speaking of Kentucky, let's go talk about Brock Vandergrift a little bit. And this was the game I watched the least amount, admittedly. It was a game I was planning on watching a good amount, but the weather delay kept pushing it back. But my biggest takeaway was it's good to get settled in. And that's exactly what happened. It wasn't a great game. It wasn't a bad game. I thought it was he showed some good things. It was good to get settled in. He didn't show anything that should be alarming. He got settled in, right? Now, he had a few missed throws. Did he have one pick, if I'm not mistaken? But regardless, there are a few throws off early in the game. But the positive takeaway is where you saw him maneuver in the pocket. You saw him go through his progressions. You saw him move out of the pocket. Like, you saw a little bit of everything that we've talked about of what makes Vandergrift a good quarterback. So I think if you are a Kentucky fan and you got South Carolina coming up, I think you're happy with who is under center for you. If you're a South Carolina fan with Kentucky coming up, I think you're like, I hope our guy improves, or I hope we put him in a better situation, whatever it is. But back to Brock Vandergrift, he settled in the game. There's weather delay is kind of funky. They were able to handle sudden miss handily. It was like 31-0, something like that. And again, they didn't have to show too much. Brock Vandergrift played a fine game, good week one game, and now they're able to really plan for South Carolina. Because I don't think they definitely didn't want to show much in week one, and they didn't have to. Where South Carolina probably had to show more than they want. They were in a dogfight. They were losing the game in the second half, in the fourth quarter, right? Like, they were in a dogfight. This game, we won't get back on South Carolina because I watched a lot of that game. We'll have a preview of South Carolina and Kentucky. I'll say that. Definitely coming up. We'll have a preview of Stellars and Vandergrift, right? But Vandergrift, wrap up Vandergrift. He's still in the game. That was it, right? All right, a few of the games that SEC teams play. Let's take a quick swig of water, and then we'll wrap this video up. All right, so every other team that played, with the exception of OU, because they played Temple, but Temple is basically an FCS team. Every other team played an FCS team. Let's run it real quick. Not a lot of takeaways here. Every team did exactly what you were supposed to do. OU, Temple, blowout. Friday night game, blowout, right? Good. Arnold safe. Taylor Green, Arkansas against UAPB. UAPB may be one of the worst FCS teams I've seen. I mean, that was not good, but they scored 70-something points, 10 straight drives. Taylor Green settled in. Really excited to look into Taylor Green and Arkansas versus Oklahoma State this weekend. One of my favorite games to kind of dive into coming up. Not a lot of takeaways, except great, perfect. You did exactly what you're supposed to do. Mizzou took care of business against Murray State. Nothing really, no takeaways from Brady Cook. He was healthy. Let's see, Tennessee, Chattanooga. Chattanooga was a better FCS school, but Tennessee still laid it on them. And Nico Maliava, again, the competition is not great, but you saw why there's so much hype around him. I mean, that arm strength and the quick release he has is impressive. Mississippi State, Eastern Kentucky, Blake Shapen. Again, not a lot of takeaways, but I think Shapen led the team rushing. He had some good job in the pass game. You blew out the FCS team you were supposed to blow out. Ole Miss, same thing against Furman. You blew them out. Furman's a good FCS team. You blew them out with ease. And then Auburn, of course, blew out Alabama A&M as well. I actually didn't get anything on Peyton Thorne and Alabama A&M, but when the score is what it was, there's no real need to, right? So that's just recap, right? So just to recap the SEC games, my biggest takeaway is if we're kind of recapping my main storylines, is Beck found a way against an elite defense, kept chipping away. Garrett Nussmeier lived up to the hype despite the loss. Connor Wigman, I think it's fair to have some questions. We saw what we saw. I mean, there's no way around it. It's fair to have some questions. Graham Mertz, where does Florida go from here? I don't know. Is DJ Lagway going to get the start coming up? I don't know. But where does they go from here? And then the most intriguing matchup coming up, well, besides like Texas and Michigan, which we're going to dive into hardcore this week. But I'm really excited to see South Carolina and Kentucky. If you're an SEC fan, I think this is the only SEC game between two SEC teams coming up this weekend, right? If I'm not mistaken. I haven't looked too hard on the schedule, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's the case. So I'm excited to see Sellers and Vandergrift and kind of do some deep dive into that. We'll have a game preview of that. And then the pleasant surprise, Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt. That was awesome. I hope people jump on that train. I hope they surprise more people. But yeah, let your nuts hang, Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt football. All right, SEC fans, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of your quarterback play? What would you like broken down more next week or these weeks coming up? Let me know some of the games you want talked about. If you're an SEC quarterback fan, you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We talk SEC football every week. We have these reaction shows or these recap shows. And then we're also going to have a preview show on Wednesday. So today's Monday. So on Wednesday, we'll have a preview show of all these games coming up in week 2. But thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It really does help the channel. Keep following us along. We'll see you next time. I'll end this show. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Peace.